All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Sales Game Changers podcast. This is a sales story and a tip show. My name is Fred Diamond. Of course, I'm the founder of the Institute for Excellence in Sales and the producer, Jamie, of over 750 Sales Game Changers podcast episodes. This is Sales Story and a Tip. I bring on a sales leader. I ask them to tell us a great sales story and then give us a tip that they learn from that story. So today's guest, we have Jamie Shanks. So of course we transcribe every show we've ever done. Go to salesgamechangerspodcast.com. And today go to salesgamechangerspodcast.com/Jamie Shanks. Jamie, it's great to see you. Why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself before we talk about your story?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am a serial entrepreneur. I've owned 3 digital agencies. The first, a lot of people would know me from, I helped pioneer the sales and methodology or training category called social selling. So I built a company called Sales for Life that scaled to 600 global customers around the world. It was the predominant social selling training company to the global enterprise, like Microsoft, Oracle, Intel, Thomson Reuters. Agency number 2 was called Pipeline Signals, and what it did is it became a tech-enabled service off of that training program that tracked job change alerts and was able to track human capital migration of people being hired, being promoted, and leaving, and sent those reports into our customer CRM, into HubSpot, into Salesforce, so the sales team had fresh leads as their past customers were moving into new businesses. And then the agency today is called Get Leverage, and we are a sales and marketing offshore agency that does every sales and marketing support task you could imagine. And our big tagline is stop doing the $5 an hour tasks so that you can focus on $500 an hour value creation. Let us do all the revenue operations for you.
All right, very good. All right, well, congratulations for all your success, and I'm excited to hear your sales story. So, Jamie Shanks, tell us a great sales story.
So I'm fresh off doing my MBA, and I'm working in commercial real estate. And in commercial real estate, it's 100% commission job. So you eat what you kill. And I'm about 6 months into the job, and I'm $50,000 in debt. So I'm beyond hungry. I've just moved to Toronto, Canada. I have no money. And I need to pay off a mountain of loans, and my rent is very expensive. I'm calling into chief financial officers or the owner or president of companies, talking from the sell side of real estate opportunities in Class A and Class B buildings. So think of helping move companies from one office space to the next. And I'm kind of balancing between commercial buildings and industrial manufacturing. And I win this opportunity. I get a CEO on the phone and talking about this opportunity. And that CEO is very hungry to build an industrial plant closer towards the airport in Toronto. I'm excited. And this is such a big potential, what's called a mandate or the right to work on the business, that the CEO of my firm wants to come to this meeting. And in a series of sales calls, we end up winning this business. And it is a mandate to build an industrial complex, 75 or 100,000 square feet, enough money that it was going to pay off my student loans and be a down payment for my first home. So it was hundreds of thousands of dollars in commissions. I was so excited. So we start working through the process of the deal, and now we're culminating towards the site visits. So we're going to look at plots of land where we're going to be building these buildings. And they scheduled it for an April on a Saturday. And so that was a little bit different. But that morning, I get up in the morning, I put my suit on, putting on my tie. I am so excited that in a few months, I'm going to have a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm going to pay off everything. I'm going to have a new home. I'm smitten. So I get to this patch of land at 8 in the morning on a cool April morning. And I'm in the car with the CEO of my firm and his chief operating officer. And then I see another car pull up, like a Mercedes AMG pull up, and it's the landlord that owns the land and his crew. And then I see our customer in an Audi A8L pull up, and it's the CEO of our customer and people I don't know. Okay. What turns out to be their investors. And as soon as the car doors open between the landlord's Mercedes and our customer's Audi, these two guys lock eyes with each other, clearly knew each other, and start running at each other. This is a dirt patch in the middle of an industrial park outside of an airport. And they start fist fighting in this dirt patch. I'm watching two 60-some-year-old men wrangle each other at 8 in the morning. So the scuffle breaks up. I'm totally confused. I'm a 26, 27-year-old, totally lost as to what has happened. So our customer, after the dust settles, our customer and his investor ask me to come into their Audi A8L. And I shuffle into the back seat, and it's dead quiet. My CEO's beside me, back seat of this beautiful car. Nothing's happening. And I see the investor kind of toggle the mirror so he can see me in the back seat. And with his best Donald Trump impression, just says, "You're fired." That's it. Like, I got fired. I'm like, what? What just happened? Why am I fired? Doesn't say anything, just "you're fired." So door opens, I get out, I get in my car, and I drive home. And on the drive home, I'm crying like hundreds of thousands of dollars of pretend money is gone. And I get back to my crummy little apartment. And when I'm at the apartment, I'm still 26, 27 years old. I have roommates. My roommates are bums. Like, we're just fresh out of university or our master's degree. These guys are hungover. One of my roommates comes walking into the living room. There's probably a box of pizza on the floor. He grabs a slice of yesterday's pizza and he's sitting there and he could see me dejected sitting on the couch crying. And he looks at me and he's like, what the hell's wrong with you? And so I tell him the fast forward version of the story. And this is where great ideas can come from anywhere. And you'd be amazed how you're inspired. And he turns to me and he says, buck up. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the liquor store. You're going to buy the most expensive bottle of Scotch you can afford. You're going to drive to that investor who's clearly the boss. You're going to drive to his house. You're going to ring his doorbell. And you are going to beg for your opportunity back. And he's going to see, the determination in your eyes. And I'm sitting there with my hands in my head like that, thinking this is the worst idea. And slowly it's sinking in. And I go, this is the worst idea. Oh my God, this is the best idea you've ever had. Now, this is almost 20 years ago. So back then, there was this website called Canada 411. And you could put in anyone's name and their home address would pop up. Like, this is before, cybersecurity. Everybody's phone number was online and their addresses were online, like the phone book. So I put in phone number or I put in details of this person. Sure enough, name and address pops up. And the address is in one of the fanciest neighborhoods in Toronto in a gated community. So I go to the liquor store. I still remember I bought a bottle of Oban Scotch, get in the car, drive to his house. Drive to his house, and within even a mile of the house, it's a full gated community. Can't even go near it. So I kind of drive down a side road, park the car, put the bottle of Scotch in my pants, and I scale the wall over the backside, sneaking into the gated community and start running down the road, a mile. Run down the road, and I see his castle and this windy driveway, and I start walking up the driveway. And he, the investor, is sitting in a bathrobe on his stoop of his house, smoking a cigar, watching me walk up the driveway, and he starts laughing. As soon as I get to the front, he shakes my hand and he says, "Let's go open that bottle of Scotch." We go to his backyard, open the bottle of Scotch, and he teaches me a life lesson. And that life lesson that he teaches me is you need to be prepared for even the smallest detail. You should have known with a simple Google search, and this is early days of Google, that I was in a lawsuit with that landlord, but you didn't do your due diligence. The little details win and lose.
Mm.
And it was incredible. And, we kept talking and developed a relationship, and I won the business back. And no, there's more learnings there, but it was a great appreciation for somebody who's made it big,
Mm.
worth hundreds of millions. And it turns out he actually was a billionaire. And the little things make the difference between good to great. Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously there's a ton of things there. We need some clarifying questions
Sure.
before before you give us some of your tips. Um, so you said that you won the business back.
Yeah.
Um, did you bring this investor and the landlord together, or did you get a different location, or what did you
So
do?
we ended up the investor gave us so in commercial real estate you win what's called a mandate. No different than if you were to sell your home, you give a listing agent the capability of working on your business. That's all it is. It is a non-binding letter of intent, if you think of it. So he granted us the ability to be the exclusive agent to working again. We worked again, tried to find some office space, other opportunities. It all kind of fizzled out months later. But hopefully, so I never did end up with the big honking check.
Hmm.
But the moral of the story is I had the right to work back on it. Now, if this was back in the paid engagement world, yes, my deal was back on. Yeah.
Wow. So are you still in touch with this guy? Has he been like
No,
a mentor, or was it a one-off type of a
it was a
lesson learned?
total one-off. He is actually a famous Canadian billionaire that no, never saw him ever again. Because as the investor, he was there kind of double checking what his CEO,
Mhm.
he owns this investor owns many companies. This was just one of his tentacles in his holdco, and he was just making sure the CEO was being mindful with his dollars.
Wow.
But it was really the CEO's deal to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. Just last thing is, as you're meeting with him with this bottle of scotch, were you? I mean, you're a pretty confident guy. You've created a couple successful companies. Were you kind of just, hey, I got nothing to lose at this point? Or were you kind of like, were you trembling when you had this meeting, or kind of what was your
No,
mindset?
here's what I've learned about myself, and and I'll tell this story in 60 seconds. When I was in university, I was failing out of business school, my undergrad. And uh, in the final semester of the final year, I didn't go to class basically the whole year, the whole semester. And I needed straight B's in my 5 remaining classes to graduate. And I concocted this harebrained scheme where I got a suit. I had business cards made from the Bank of Montreal where I was working. I was actually working and kind of going to school. My roommates thought there was zero probability this would ever get done. I booked a meeting with each professor and convinced them
Hmm.
that I was an investment that they should make in and that they should give me a B in this class, even though I never showed up. And I would graduate and I would make them proud. And I convinced 5 professors to 5 different ones to give me all B's, and I graduated. My roommates tell this story to everyone like, you cannot believe what this guy can sell. So I've determined, and the big moral of the story is, it's the Wayne Gretzky concept. You you only score when you shoot on net, essentially,
Yeah.
and you score 0% of the shots you don't take.
Mhm. Yeah.
You just have to be willing to hear no. A no is fine. A
Yeah.
no is like a maybe later, but
Yeah.
you can't be afraid of it.
All right, so we end the sales story in a tip podcast with a tip. So obviously, preparation is something we talk about all the time. But what's your tip that you really took away from this particular story?
The tip for me stems back to what I was just mentioning, that you cannot be afraid to take a chance, take a risk, do something bold, because if I had have done nothing, I was in a guaranteed position to make zero money out of this and forge zero relationships. But if I did something,
Yeah.
I had, it's like in the movie Dumb and Dumber. It's like you're saying you have a chance. Like that
Mm.
was it. I gave myself just even a little probability. But you will be amazed when you go out of your way to serve a customer or do something for a prospect. I can't tell you, like you'll feel slightly nervous for the ask and you'll feel out of place or uncomfortable, but it's a way better outcome, probable,
Yeah.
than the doing nothing. The doing nothing
Yeah.
is guaranteed to get you nothing.
No, that is a great bit of advice, preparation, and you got to do things, and of course you got to do the right things. So that's a great story. All right, once again, I want to thank Jamie Shanks for being on today's sales story and a tip. My name is Fred Diamond.